This is deep stretch. So it's going to be kind of our take of yin practices. What I love about the yin yang concepts is that it's always a little bit of both, that things have yin and yang energies. And so we'll do some things that are a little bit movement based, but I don't usually take us through even a down dog. That might be more of a reach for of a pose for us, but you can always take them. The big point is listen to what you need today. If you have a blanket, that will be great. If you have a pillow, or you can even roll up another blanket to mimic a bolster, and that would be the second prop, right? A bolster. And then I just always like to have a block. I think that they're super helpful. Always. They're like a tool that I can lean on, even if it's just to rest my head on something when I am, when I'm holding a pose for a while. So it just kind of helps the shoulders soften a little bit. And that being said, you can start the playlist if you'd like. And our pose is a forward fold, Paschimottanasana, supported forward fold. So I thought we'd open up the hip flexors to kind of counter that. And we've been forward folding probably all week in binds, right, for Virabhadrasana. And that being said, our shoulders. So we're going to focus this class, hip flexors, shoulders, and then of course, back of the legs and back muscles as well. If you have any other requests, just let me know. You'll head to your mat, and the first pose is going to be a supported fish. So the bolster or blanket can run the length of the spine. So I have a skinny bolster. I'm going to use that. You can always roll up a blanket and use that as well instead. Whether you get support for your head or not is up to you. Whatever is most comfortable for your pose. If you have two props, you can always add the blanket behind, or like another prop behind the back of the knees to kind of soften the hamstrings. And the bolster at the end of the blanket starts at the hips, the low back, and then supports the spine so the chest can open up, the collarbone can broaden. And you'll just rest here. Let the props do the work. Let everything else melt in. So get comfortable. Support your spine. Let's take a deep breath into the belly, the collarbones. Expand, expand, expand. And then exhale. Let out a sigh, let it all go. And just add deep breaths. As you hold the pose, we'll be here for a few minutes. So long inhales and long exhales. When we find ourselves with ourselves in the moment at hand, it can go in many directions, right? Our attention might soften in the evenings. We've experienced a whole day before it, so all of that might be with us. Or as we're transitioning to nighttime, we might be feeling a little more relaxation, a little more ease. We might have a lot of thoughts running through the mind. We might feel a little foggy. We might be so exhausted, it's even hard to hold a thought for very long. So wherever you are, wherever you land in this, whatever your moment feels like, it is valid. It is yours. And as the prop is here holding space for you, supporting you, see if you can start to surrender. Surrender the things that might pull you away. This will be a long practice, right? To continually let ourselves be free from the things that distract us. Whether it's another being, another person, pet, light, and sounds in our space around us. I have 2 children and 2 dogs. Like, there is very few times in my life that I, at home when I'm practicing, can kind of carve out space where they're not a part of it. And we just work with it. This practice is to work with the obstacles, through the obstacles, to remember that we are greater than the obstacle at hand. So this heart opener is our first pose. It's kind of really offering us room to splay ourselves out, surrender. We've got these vital organs, the gut, the heart, opening up to everything above and around it. It's a vulnerable position. To be vulnerable is a courageous act. Let's take the last 3 cycles of breath here, in and out, nice and long. A long breath in, fill, 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 take up some space. And a full breath out, let it all go. You'll walk your feet in towards your sit bones. As you breathe out, you'll come over onto your side, breathing in. And as you exhale, you'll slowly sit up tall. So in your time, you'll get there. Let's find a comfortable cross-legged posture. You can sit on one of your props, 2 of your props, whatever feels good to elevate the hips. Okay, and then we're going to take the arms out to the side like goalpost. Reach your elbows to opposite walls. And as you exhale, I want you to draw those elbows back, okay? So elbows slightly back. And then as you breathe in, draw those elbows towards your waist. Elbows drawing, broadening your pelvis. Your ribs can splay a little. Your pelvis might be tilting forward. And then as you exhale, let's hug left arm on top of right here. Give yourself a big hug. Reach for opposite shoulder blades. Reach your elbows slightly forward, your shoulder blades back, your crown up, and your sit bones down. Breathe in. Side ribs, upper back ribs. Exhale. See if you can relax the muscles around the tops of the shoulders. Another deep breath in. And exhale, let it out. Inhale, back to goalpost, bring the arms. As you exhale, draw them back. Beginning to inhale, draw them to the waist, like you've got wings here. Grab the collarbone. Notice if it's resisting the external opening, just roll it open. And then as you exhale, opposite arm, right arm on top. And just hug on. Grab a hold. Breathe in, elbows forward, shoulder blades back. Plug your sit bones down, crown reaching high. Breathe out. Notice where you're clenching, where you're gripping. The physical experience, the muscles, the bones, the mind, the thoughts. Breathe in. And a long breath out. Then one more time, inhale, draw them apart. Goalpost arms. As you exhale, extend the arms, turn the palms up. Breathe in, reach them a little further. And then as you breathe out, let's bend to goalpost. Inhale, twist to your left. Exhale, bring that right shoulder slightly back, right forearm back. Breathe in, sit a little taller. Exhale, maybe twist a little deeper from the mid-torso. Inhale through center. Exhale, begin to twist to your right. Breathe in, draw that left arm slightly back, forearm back. And then breathe out, maybe twisting deeper, taking it even into the cervical spine, looking for your right arm. And then inhale, let's come through center. Exhale, allow your arms to come down. You might feel a little warmth and heat there in your shoulders, your upper arms. Switch which legs in front if you're cross-legged. Okay, and we're gonna start to move just a little bit quicker with our movements here. So left hand down, inhale, right arm up. As you exhale, bend over to your left. Okay, right arm's reaching, left palm's planted. And then inhale, draw that right shoulder back. As you exhale, bring that right shoulder forward. Inhale, draw that right shoulder back. Notice if that left shoulder is creeping up. Exhale, bring that right shoulder forward. Last time, inhale, draw that right shoulder back, look up, maybe reach the right arm a bit more. As you exhale, look down, bring right hand across to your left knee. Left arm sweeps on top to your opposite knee. Your arms are crossed, and just tuck your chin in, squeeze that under your bottom arm into your top arm, press them together, spread the shoulder blades out, take a deep, deep breath in from your sit bones to the crown of your head. And exhale, reach those arms out and apart, take a deep breath in, reach up, 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 and then exhale, allow the hands to soften. Breathe in, reach your left arm to the sky, and then as you exhale, side bend to your right. So reaching with those left fingers, your inhale, draw that left shoulder back. Right palm's planted, exhale, bring the shoulder forward. Notice if your right shoulder is creeping up, okay? Inhale, draw the left shoulder back. We did this about 3 times. Exhale to come forward. Inhale, we draw that left shoulder back, really extend and reach from that left arm. And as you exhale, bring it on your left hand to your opposite knee, to your right knee. Your right arm swims on top to your left knee. And then one more time, pulling on your legs, right? This is a little opposition. As we hold the pose, arms squeezing together, chin tucks in, your tailbone might even tuck a little bit. Breathe into the back of your lungs. Fill, fill, fill. Exhale here. Take one more deep breath in and out. And then as you inhale, come up, reach out and apart, reach up, lift up. Exhale, hands down by your side. Okay. And then we're gonna move our props out of our way. And going to start with what's it called? Sphinx pose. Sphinx pose. So we're going to come onto our bellies. You prep kind of like you do for cobra, and then your elbows actually land underneath your shoulders. If it's a lot of tension for you under your shoulders, you can scoot your elbows slightly forward. Notice my feet, the tops of my feet are down, my pelvis is grounded, but my forearms press down, so my torso is, the top of my torso is lifting away. You can also bring those elbows directly under, and if you want to build on it, you can even add, if you want a little more length in your spine, you can add a prop underneath, like a pillow or a blanket underneath your forearms by your elbows. So you choose how intensely you want this back bend, and this is, if you have a block, a beautiful place to add it in, because sometimes it's nice to just tuck the chin in and drop the head down. But I want you to keep the tension in your shoulders where they're drawing slightly back and apart. This is a back bend, it's an extension of the spine. So we're trying to make more space in the front of our vertebra, in our bellies, our collarbones. The spine is trying to elongate. So really finding that when you press down, the shoulders are reaching away from each other slightly, and it's a little bit of toning. It's yin is that still, that unmoving, right? So the pose isn't moving, but the yang aspect is the energy, the effort that's happening in your collarbone as it tries to broaden, as it tries to counter device doing and computer work and driving and time and age, right? It's all this roundedness, it's really trying to find opposition to that. So some of us might feel a lot in our pecs and in our shoulder heads. Some of us may be a little less, it might be a little less intense. I find that when poses physically don't offer as much intensity, my mind tends to wander, right? My grasping in myself is that I always have to be stimulated in some way. I'm seeking, I'm doing something. My mind will make up for it even if I'm in a pose. So we hold the pose, notice where your mind goes, what you're clinging to, what you're grasping for. And if you can offer yourself a little grace. That you are not all the things you do in your life, your roles you fulfill. That yoga is trying to remind us that we are of abundance, that we are whole, this divine nature within us. We spend some time being, so we might catch glimpses of it. Or we might catch moments where we free ourselves from all the things we think we have to do. You're gonna hold this for just like another minute. Pay attention to your breath. Were you able to hold those deep breaths? Did they become short and shallow again? If you find yourself spinning off with a thought, were you holding your breath potentially? When I fixate on a thought, my lungs tend to kind of fixate, clench as well. I've kind of been sharing that through these classes a bit more. And it's a habit, it's a pattern, it's an observation. As I spend time with myself, I've come to know. So offer yourself some space to breathe if that's familiar to you. Just take a little more time on the inhale. Take a little more time on the exhale. And then you'll take your last 2-3 breaths here. And we're just going to come out of this pose First, if you've got anything underneath the elbows, I want you to move those out of the way, okay? You're welcome to stay put here, or you can turn your forearms out at about 45 degrees. Mine start to reach for the corners of my mat or corners of the room. And then you can stay here in this variation called seal, or you can start to extend the arms, then even lift the chin to stretch at the front of the throat. Find a little more back bend, keep pressing your pelvis down so you don't dump into your low back. Stay strong through your back muscles, that's how you back bend. And exhale, if your elbows are up, bring them down. We're gonna take crocodile pose for a couple minutes. You'll spin your palms down, interlace your fingers so your elbows go out. Take your toes off to the edges of your mat and turn them out so the heels turn in. You're trying to get the inner arches of your feet down. And then gently rest your head on the back of your knee. I love a little pressure there where I rock my face on my fingers. You have sinus pressure issues, allergies, these are, the stimulation there might feel intense, but sometimes it can be very relieving after. Hold this, like I said, for at least a couple minutes, starting to externally open up the hips with support of the ground. Find your breath, long inhales, long exhales. Feel your belly pressing against the ground as you breathe in and out. You're doing a great job. You're here, which is often the hardest part. It's just to arrive. Let's take our last 3 cycles of breath. Full inhale. Long exhale. Breathing in and breathing out. Our next pose is actually on our back. So to come out of this, you'll simply roll onto your backs. If you want to take a child's pose, you can do that. Make it your own. Whether it's a block or a bolster or a blanket or a pillow, something to support your hips. We're going to take bridge pose, supported bridge. And in it, I would suggest that you walk your feet in, you find your support underneath the back of your sit bones. So it's lower than the sacrum, all right? It's the lowest part of your sacrum and the meat of your hips, your butt. I would say it's even right behind your butthole. So that's where you're placing the prop. And then you can walk the feet forward to elongate through the front of those hips. And if it feels right today, you can even reach the arms overhead and just stretch yourself out across the front body. We're going to hold this for a few minutes, so make it comfortable. You might have to test where that prop is located or what it is that you're using. If you're on a block, I recommend the lowest setting, maybe the medium setting. If you're fairly, you got mobility in your front hips. A lot of us work with tight hip flexor space, so usually just that low setting is enough. And then try to let your props do the work. Okay, so observe where you're physically clenching. Is it in your jaw, your face, your shoulders? Are your hips trying to hold themselves up with the support of the glute and the legs? Are your heels, where they're on the ground, trying to press into the ground to support the body above it? I want you to try to relax. And if it's too much with your legs long, you can always just keep your legs bent, okay? And the feet planted on the ground. But we're trying to draw out some room in the hip flexors. So stretch out where you can, make space where you can. Let your breath support you in that, really using those inhales to expand ourselves physically, energetically, take up space. Then exhale to kind of relax and surrender, to draw in, to let go. Notice where the breath goes, where maybe it needs a little encouragement. We have our ribs, our lungs that go way up into the, near the collarbone. We really want to take up that breath, that space, to open us up. Use that front body to expand a little bit more. The prop supporting you in that extension and expansion. Maybe the breath stops at the middle of the chest. You can ask it to go a little bit taller, a little bit longer. And often just by focusing on the breath, it becomes more spacious. It takes up more time. You give it more room. Long breaths in, long breaths out. Okay, we're more than halfway done with this pose. So just keep on breathing. Keep on being. Notice what you're clenching to. with your thoughts in your body? Any patterns you're noticing? What are your reactions to your observations? Slowing down to really see these things, explore these things. And let's take those last few cycles of breath. Long inhale and long exhale. Your arms are overhead. You'll start to bring them down towards the hips. Palms can be up or down, does not matter. You can walk your feet in if your legs were long. Lift them up off of the block and then just set the block aside. Before we hug the knees in, I want us to take a version of a natural curves of our spine. So you're going to walk your feet slightly apart and tent your knees so your inner knees touch. Your soles stay on the ground, your knees stay connected, and then just like we did earlier, give yourself a hug around the chest with one arm on top of the other. Breathe in. And then open the mouth as you breathe out. Switch which arm's on top. Take another deep breath in. And exhale. Let it all out. And we'll bring ourselves, arms out to the side like wings. You're going to walk your feet in towards each other. Okay. Bring your knees over to the right. And then actually let's bring that left hand to meet your right hand and help yourself up to seated. And then we'll take hands and knees, tabletop pose, okay, for a little bit here. Want to work on just the wrists and the shoulders a little. So your hands directly under your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips. Let me get to the top of my mat. And let's turn your fingers out so your inner wrists face each other. And then just rock a little side to side here, but press your hands down and let your chin go slightly forward, your gaze go slightly forward to stay open through the spine, the collarbone. And then take 3 circles with the torso clockwise and counterclockwise. 3 circles. Notice if you hold your breath, if you start to look down, see if you can keep looking forward. Once you've done both directions, you're going to bring your hands back through center, fingers forward, and then your left palm's gonna turn down with your fingers pointing towards your left knee. Your right palm's gonna stay planted. Press both palms into the ground. Feel the knuckles where your fingers meet your joints, or your palms press into the ground, your fingertips. And then about 5, 8 times rock back and forth. Look slightly forward. Notice if any tension is creeping up in the upper shoulders. Our body gives way to the tension. Our psychology plants itself in our physiology. So be patient with it. As you explore those things, any tendencies, any patterns, any habits, seeing if we can start to just take note of them. Once you've done about 5, 10, 8 rounds, whatever you want to do on that side, you're going to switch. Left hand under the shoulder, fingers forward, right palm down, fingers back. Find the palms, find the knuckles where the fingers meet the palms, and the fingertips, the fingerprints of your hands. Press them down, take that gaze slightly forward, and then once again, rock. 5, 8, 10 times back and forth. And then keep breathing. And then once you've done that, both hands come down and we'll just tuck our toes bring our hips back towards our heels for a hero's pose to stretch the arches out. You're gonna take your fist, you're gonna fist bump yourself, okay? So like, fist bump, and then start to extend your arms forward while you fist bump. And this might be a lot on your knees. If it's a lot, maybe you come up off of that healing so you're not in such a deep compression. But I'd like the toes tucked to stretch out those arches a little bit. So trying to straighten those arms out, really giving it that stretch, that reach. Take a deep breath in. A full breath out. One more inhale. And as you exhale, bring your arms towards you. Breathe in, bring your hands down to the ground. And as you breathe out, maybe shake those feet out. Taking our pose, Paschimottanasana, we're going to take the blanket or bolster underneath the back of the knees. You'll sit with your legs long. I like to add a little block here to support the head, and sometimes a little bolster to support my ribs, and you're just going to round forward, okay? Think about stretching out the muscles of the back, the chin tucking in. Your legs can be together or they can be slightly apart. We'll be here for about 5 minutes, so get comfortable. I like it behind the back of the knees so you don't overstretch, over intensify the experience in the hamstrings, especially for 5 minutes, right? But if you don't have any props, taking this pose just in Paschimottanasana, notice if you're flexing your feet aggressively with a lot of intention and effort, see if you can soften your feet, soften your jaw, soften your shoulders away from your ears. And keep on breathing. Notice where the breath goes. Notice maybe where it resists. Do you find yourself reaching for your feet with your hands? See if you can allow your hands, your arms to soften. Soften the space between your fingers, your toes. You might need a little more support under the hips. Be okay changing, moving props, adding props, getting rid of props. We use this practice to sometimes check in, right? The union concept, the idea we are unified and connected within ourselves and then beyond ourselves to all things. Within ourselves is the first place we can really start. So the energy can transfer. If your mind is real tense, your body will start to pick up that tension and carry it with you, right? Our thoughts, our emotions, our trauma, our experiences are implanted within us physically, genetically. And then when we start to work with those tensions, when we start to work with the body, the concept of it, where we're tight, where we're holding, where we're gripping, we're clenching, um, that energy transfers into the mind. So even if we're mentally like feeling calm and soft, suddenly you start stretching and expanding and engaging, and then the mental chatter starts to pick up. The emotional experience starts to come along because it's all in union. We cannot separate our mental, emotional experiences from our physical, physiological experiences. That they're all, our mind and body are connected. One influences the other in a cyclical way. So, what patterns do you note? Can you give yourself grace? What are you clinging to in your body, your mind, your experiences, your life? What habits and patterns are you catching? Where can you start to let go? Let go of ways of grasping and clenching that keep us tight and rigid. We're more than halfway there. So keep on breathing. If you ever feel any numbness or tingliness, you can always come out of the pose for a little bit, roll, move the ankles, the feet, and then go back in. Deep breath in and long breath out. And using the energetic release of the exhale to physically surrender a little deeper into the pose, into this moment. Last 3 rounds of breath. Feel the breath travel from your low back to the upper back, neck, and shoulders as you breathe in. As you breathe out, feel your belly soften, your upper body folding towards your low body. Take the breath deeply into the back of your lungs, expand, grow. Exhale, let go, surrender, find some release. And after that last exhale, I just want you to slowly walk your hands in, put a little effort into them to support you up to seated. You can move the blanket or bolster out from behind the legs. And just sit up straight for a moment here. You can turn those toes in and out if that feels good. Point and flex. Draw those shoulders back and down. And then just take a deep inhale in. Open mouth, exhale. Let it out. Once again, a deep inhale. And exhale. Let it out. And then slowly, you'll scoot yourself, your heels towards the edge of your mat. And You can start to point your toes, reach your arms forward or up, and then you're going to come halfway down as you reach forward. I want you to stay really long here. So a more efforted version of Paschimottanasana. With the toes pointed away from you, right? They're reaching away. You should probably start feeling a stretch in the tops of the feet, the shins. I want you to turn your pinkies towards each other, palms slightly up, breathe in, reach a little more forward, press your butt down into the ground. Then exhale, come halfway down to your legs. A little bit closer, right? Again, inhaling, turning those palms up, maybe stretching those fingers out. Sternum reaching forward, breathe in, butt down, exhale, come halfway down to those legs, one more inhale, and then exhale, just tuck the chin in, round the spine out, toes stay pointed, take one deep breath in, open the mouth, exhale, let it out, and then you'll slowly sit up tall. You can reach your arms forward, use a little core to curl back, low back down, tips of the shoulder blades down, inhale, reach those arms overhead. And as you exhale, you're just going to walk your feet to the bottom right corner of your mat. So your left side starting to stretch from your left hip to your left foot. And then your arms up and over with the shoulders staying down to the top right corner of your mat. Gaze can stay up or your head might start to turn slightly. Grab opposite elbows to relax the shoulders and maybe to go a little deeper, cross left ankle on top of the right. 5 breaths here. Opening the left ribs on the inhale, softening the right ribs on the exhale. Notice where you clench, where the tension is. Try to make space, breathe in. Exhale, allow that right side to let go. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last 2 rounds. And before you let your elbows go, notice which forearm is on top or in front. We're just gonna keep that in mind for when we take this on the other side. Uncross your ankles as you exhale, release your elbows. Breathe in through center, stretch apart. And then breathe out, walk your feet to the bottom left corner of your mat. Starting to stretch from that right side. Breathe in, start to take your hands up and over, your arms to the top left corner. And then now grab opposite elbows with the opposite forearm in front or on top. And then if you'd like, cross the right ankle on top of the left. 5 cycles of breath here. Armpits open, shoulders resting on the ground, shoulder blades rested. A crescent shape with the body. Opening the right side on the inhales, allowing the left side to relax on the exhale. Breathing in. Breathing out. And then after that last exhale, release your elbows, release your ankles, uncross the ankles, walk it through center, stretch apart, take a deep breath in, tips to toes, stretch, 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 big morning stretch. And as you exhale, hug your knees into your chest. And for a moment here, with your head and shoulders on the ground, your hips on the ground, just extend your legs, soles to the sky. Let's get those legs inverted. You can grab a hold behind the thigh bones if that feels good, or you can just let them be vertical without any support. 10 inhales, 10 exhales. That's all that's left in this pose. This last pose before we let the dust settle. I like to move my ankles when I do this, so maybe you're pointing, flexing your feet, you're rolling your ankles in both directions. Our feet hold us up and they carry us through our lives. They support us. And so we're just lifting them up here, kind of giving them some free space. When you're done, those last couple breaths, you just bend one knee into your chest, followed by the other. Plant one foot down on the ground, followed by the other. Walk your feet apart, let your knees, or walk your feet together, let your knees fall apart. And then extend one leg long, the other leg long, reaching for the corners of your mat. Take your head from side to side and a micro tuck of the chin. If you want to add that blanket under your head and shoulder, the tip of your shoulder, top of your shoulders, you might create a little support there to try to get the upper back ribs down, and that can release the back a little bit, especially if you feel low back pain. And settle in. Settle in so the dust can settle. All the effort we put into this practice now, finding a place to release. Any observations you made along the way. Any new observations, any consistent experiences. Gratitude for the time, the practice to bring us to that. See if you can let the breath go. Any thoughts you might be clinging to, let those go. Each time a new thought comes up, thank it. It will serve a place in time. But at this time, just allow yourself this practice of being. Be right where you are, as you are, whole and enough. It's often in this pose of stillness that our patterns of thinking, the types of thoughts, the past, the future, the ways we move through our lives start to kind of reveal themselves. Often when it's so hard to be still, physically, we plant ourselves in stillness, then the mind's like, free. I want to run wild. It wants to engage and seek out. It's all very common space. Be generous with yourself, be gracious with yourself. You've been thinking about somewhere else off of your mat. It's a practice of returning that really is our yoga. Us coming to union with where we are, who we are, and all that we are. Start to stretch and roll, expand and contract fingers, toes, ankles, wrists. Maybe a big stretch, arms overhead. You can walk the feet in, bending the knees. Maybe a hug in feels good today, or just tipping over to a side. And then finally coming to seated. A chance to close the practice together, allowing the palms to find union over the heart space. This physical gesture of union. Bringing to mind something you're grateful for today here, planting it like a seed here between the palms of your hands. A little more effort as your palms press into each other, a little heat, a little effort. And then carrying this gratitude as you bring your thumbs to your third eye. May it inspire your thoughts, which become your words, your actions, your behaviors and habits. The samskaras are patterns in which we move through the world. Bowing forward to seal your practice. Namaste.